Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Christopher Media. Let's make some noise. From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan. It's unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Episode number 269. I'm Chris.
I'm Rich.
No Aaron today. Aaron's on his grind. He's making that money. So, just me and Rich tonight. And we have a guest. And I'm going to let Rich set all that up for us.
Yeah, we have a guest, buddy from the music scene, but also a school teacher. Adam, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey everybody, Chris, Rich, thanks for having me on. Let's see, school. This is my third year now as a social studies teacher in DPS. And I guess that's what I'm coming on to talk about.
Detroit Public Schools.
History and civics and econ and finance and all that good stuff. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, schools is a subject that we touch upon, quite frequently, and the state of schools and stuff. Like we were talking about the teacher strike in California and everything when that was going on. And it's one of the things that we're just taking shots in the dark. I don't really know anyone. The three of us aren't on the front lines. You know what I'm saying? We're not in a classroom. And I just felt like to have you on would be a good way to shine a light on what goes on in a major school system. So,
the closest really is Aaron, and he's got 2 kids in school, but I don't have any kids. Rich doesn't have any school age kids. So, yeah, we're all just kind of guessing at this point.
Yeah. So I guess my first question would be, when did you? What made you want to go into teaching?
After high school, I hated school growing up. Hated everything about it. So after high school, I was real burnt out. I went to a Catholic school my whole life, and by the time I was done with that, like high school,
where'd you go?
I went to Catholic Central.
Okay. I went to Notre Dame for a year. I did Catholic school all through grammar school and middle school, and then I did Notre Dame when it was still in Harper Woods for a year. Okay,
right on. Yeah, when I was done with Catholic Central, by the time they were that was like my first taste of like nationalism. I feel like.
Yes.
Like the school spirit was above and beyond, and it burnt me out. I never understood how you could have that much school spirit. And so when it was done, I remember I was like, no, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to college. I'm done. I'm working. I'll figure things out. And I was working at a bank full time, and I realized it was probably about a year and a half, 2 years after I graduated. I was like, there was nothing really offered to me without a college degree. And I realized I didn't want to do banking. I didn't want to do anything in sales. So that made me kind of really think, like, what do I want to do? And the only thing I did do at that time was play in a band. And so I'm like, well, if that doesn't pan out, what could I get paid to do? And something I actually love. And I thought about the only thing I ever really liked in school was history. So I thought, what can you do with history? And I thought, you can teach. And so I'm like, all right, I can make money talking about history all day, every day. And then there's some pretty sweet vacation time involved. And then the idea of possibly actually helping people too, making some sort of difference. I was like, all right, low pay, but sweet vacation. I get to talk about my favorite subject and I get to help people. So that was kind of, so I went to Schoolcraft, and then from there went to Eastern, and I graduated, I want to say like 6 years ago, maybe 7.
Okay.
Yeah. I really like the idea of summer vacation forever.
Just to get an idea of your age group, you were class of what in high school?
04.
Okay, you're the young buck in the room.
If you ask my students, I'm really old.
Oh no,
They tell me every day, like, "Oh my God, you're so old and lame."
Well, yeah, they're high school age. You're over 25. You might as well be dead.
I'll make jokes that are references, and they just give me the blankest stares. I'm like, "No, really? No one knows that?"
God forbid you mentioned something about like Public Enemy, and they're just like, "You mean the guy from Flavor of Love?" You're like,
they don't even know Flavor of Love, bro. Like, I'll throw out
Damn.
Outcast. They're like Andre who? And that's when I want to just be like, get out of my room, go.
you
just
should
failed
teach
the semester.
You should teach history and music history appreciation.
I would love to teach that class.
Well, it's good to know where then there's a nice 10-year between the three of us. Rich is class of 94, I'm class of 97, you're 04. So there's like a nice little cross section of a decade. So that it's good to kind of give me an idea of where we're all coming from.
Okay. So all right. So you graduate Eastern. Now can you teach with a 4-year degree? Do you have to have more than 4 years?
That's what I have, is a 4-year degree. I know I need to go back and get my master's, but the idea of assigning homework and teaching all day and then going to class and doing my own homework at night, it's exhausting.
I imagine.
So I'm still trying to get the nerve to go back, but I'm just tired. I just taught all day. I just know if someone's like, all right, I need you to do this paper or this assignment, I go, no, I'm not doing that.
I had a buddy years ago who worked as a prison guard, and I was like, what's it like? And he goes, it's like going to prison every day. And so I can imagine, like, if you teach school every day, you probably don't want to spend your nights in school as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of overload there. So if you could, would you lay out your path from graduation to your first full-time teaching gig?
Ooh, that was rough. So after I graduated, it took about a month for my paperwork to come through, but I was all registered for subbing. So I was like, okay, everyone tells you this is what you got to do to get your foot in the door. So that was the plan, and you sign up for this company. And every day you go on, every morning you wake up at like 5, 6 a.m. and you check the website, and they just had all the postings. We need this teacher, we need this subject, like it's a half day, full day, maybe it's like for 3 days, and each school district is a different amount. So I'm trying to think, I think Wayne was the best in my area. But then all you had to do was just click like, yep, accept, and you would get there at the time they say, and that was miserable. That was absolutely miserable. I did it for 2 months, and my thing is, if it's not history or any sort of social studies, I didn't know it, and I'm the type of person, if I go in front of somebody, I want to be prepared. The more prepared I am, the more confident I am. So going into a science class or a math class, which are subjects that I didn't really excel in, and I had no idea what I was going to be talking about that day, my anxiety shot through the roof.
Just walking to class like, I don't know.
That's pretty much how it was. Like, I'd get into like 6th grade math, and they'd be like, how do you do this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, this does not look like how I did it, and it's been a really long time, and I barely passed it then.
Today's lesson is from the School of Life, kids. Sometimes you got to do shit you don't want to do so you can keep living indoors.
Yeah. Well, then I started to get these paychecks too, and you're making, anywhere from $7 to $9 an hour.
Wow.
So I'm doing all this subbing, and I just noticed like every morning I was like having panic attacks. Because I was so nervous about being in front of a group of kids I didn't know for, teaching something I didn't know for really low pay.
Why do we do that? Why do we essentially pay the people who are shaping the future of our society like dog shit?
I don't know. I don't know why. We clearly don't value it as much as other countries, but to go so I'm like getting these checks, and I'm not even really covering my bills, And then you realize at least you're not really even teaching. They leave plans out like have them do this worksheet or have them work from the textbook. So you're really just babysitting. So you're not feeling fulfilled whatsoever, but you're like, hey, I got to get my foot in the door. But then every single day, I mean, we all remember what it was like as kids. The sub comes in, you mess with them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's party time when the
sub's here today. We ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
That's how it went down in my school.
Most days, you just have to like establish your dominance. And you come in, you try to be real nice for the first 5 minutes, and then they immediately try to mess with you, and you got to, squash that immediately. So it felt like every day I was being like a drill sergeant, just like yelling at kids or disciplining kids. And you're like, I don't want to yell at kids. I don't want to teach math, and I don't want to make $8 an hour.
Pop a couple rounds in the ceiling. It gets them to shut up real quick.
Yeah. So I looked at I was still living at home at the time. I just had to look at my parents and I'm not doing this. I'm like, I know it'll be tougher to get a teaching job another way, but I can't do this subbing. There was one day in Redford, I subbed for a computer class, and the students really liked me. I like had them do their work, and I told them they could play computer games when they were done, and it blew their mind. And they wanted me to keep coming in. I made a joke saying everyone should sign a petition to get me hired, and I was completely kidding. And apparently they did, and they gave it to the principal. And then he came. He was all impressed, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think I just got myself a job." And then when he found out I was social studies, he was like, "Oh no, we need special ed and math." That's like what everyone was hiring.
Now, quick question: is special ed, is that a different teaching? Do you have to have a certain type of education to teach special ed?
Yeah, it's so like we all have like our degrees in teaching, but then you also got to like gear towards your subject. So my major is social studies, which allows me to teach like 5 different subjects. I can teach econ, civics, U.S., world history, and then my minor is in history just to kind of emphasize it.
Okay.
But some people will have like social studies and a minor in science or math, so they can teach those. So if you had special ed, you would have your teaching certificate plus a degree in special ed.
Okay, because I have a friend right now who's finishing up her degree, and she's student teaching, and it's health and PE is her thing. Okay. But she's also working with special needs children, and she says it's quite different going from a health class in a high school in Detroit to teaching kids with special needs.
Oh, I can imagine.
She's like it's 2 different worlds.
Yeah,
and the involvement of parents and or lack thereof sometimes. She goes, it really you can tell it makes a difference. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, you said at one point you felt like you were just babysitting.
Yeah,
and I know that in my experience growing up, I had teachers who, looking back, I can tell they just were up there not giving a shit. But then I had teachers who actually cared, and I remember their name. I remember my kindergarten teacher's name, Mr. Salamone, because he was that cool of a teacher, and he was like, he really liked teaching kids. So I mean, did you have a teacher that kind of like, or any teachers that kind of stuck with you that you kind of were like, I know you weren't a big fan of school, but.
For sure. So history was always my favorite subject, but I also really loved English, at least when we were in the literature part. Grammar I never cared about, but reading and writing. And in 4th grade, I had Miss Lewis. I used to write like little short fictional stories. And I remember one day, like every day, it was like a superhero or a spy story. But one day I came into school and she had bought me like a folder, my own special folder. And she's like, this is for your stories. Every day you write your stories, you put them in here. And the rest of the class, I remember, got so jealous that she got me that folder for my stories and no one else. Yeah, that stuck out with me. And then in high school, I had an English teacher, Mr. Wykowski. I remember I really connected with him because he told me when he was in high school, he was in a band. He played keyboards in a new wave band. I remember I had a good laugh at that, but I was like, oh man, this guy's in a band. That was so cool. And the type of literature he taught was always the type of stories that were questioning authority and not bowing down to higher power type stuff. And so he was the only one in Catholic school that actually said you should think about things and question things. And so I feel like my punk rock side gravitated towards him.
Teach you about Holden Caulfield?
What's up?
Did he teach you about Holden Caulfield?
I don't remember that one.
Catcher in the Rye?
No, you know what? We never read that.
Well, I got to imagine Catholic schools is, having never gone. I've had friends that went to Catholic school and then transferred during high school to public school, and they were like, yeah, all these theology credits, yeah, they don't mean anything in public school. So
no, they did not.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure not. But you know what? I could tell you, well, not anymore, but I used to be able to tell you the whole Old Testament and New Testament, and I knew all of that.
I will tell you this, Adam. I transferred to sophomore year from freshman year. My sophomore year was literally my 9th grade year. All public schools was a year behind. My 10th grade year, it was everything I just did 9th grade year. All the same books we read in English class, fucking everything.
I'm surprised it was only a year behind, honestly. When I went to college, that's when I looked at my parents and I said, thank you for sending me where you did. The school spirit was gross. The sports were gross. Not the teachers, but the administration I didn't really get along with, but the college prep lessons and classes. Once I actually went to college, I went, oh, the assignments they were giving in college. I'm like, oh, you want me to write a 10-page paper? I did that my sophomore year of high school. That's nothing.
All right, so here's a question for you. As somebody who was educated in that system and now teaches on the other side, how do we get there? How do we turn the public? I know this might seem like a really complicated question, but how do we get the same quality of education that is in those Catholic schools into the public schools?
Whew, that is not an easy question.
Is it a big pile of money? What's it going to take?
Oh, for sure money. Money will always help everything. And that's one of the problems with DPS or pretty much all public schools, but you kind of in America you have two types of public schools. You have the suburbs and then you have the city. They're not the same.
Oh, we all know what that's code for, kids.
And so money would definitely help you. The suburbs need some money. The city needs a lot of money.
Well, that's something I was wondering because Detroit has lost. It's just hemorrhaging residents. And I imagine as they leave, there goes the tax base, and so the public schools, at least in my perception. The way it seems to me, the first thing on the chopping block is usually social programs and schools.
For sure.
Or public transportation, I guess, is part of social programs. It seems like these things get cut first. And ironically, those are the things that are going to help people get out of the situations they're in. And we're cutting them off at the knees here.
For sure.
And I guess my question would be is as teachers, you and your fellow teachers in the Detroit public school system, do you guys ever just sit and have conversations and be like, man, if we only had X amount of, more money, what we could do? And is there anything that you guys talk about that to try to come up with something to fix it? Do you get what I'm saying? Because I get what you're saying. I never have that talk with my coworkers, but it's definitely, we all know it. I think sometimes it can be really overwhelming when we think about everything we're up against. So it seems like, at least with me and my coworkers, it's almost like strap your helmets on. We're getting in the trenches, and we're just going to do the best we can.
But money's definitely an issue. I mean, you've got people leaving the city, so there's money gone. You've got parents taking their kids out and sending them to charter schools, so that's less money for us. And then on top of that, I mean, a couple of years ago, you have a bunch of DPS, principals and stuff being caught stealing money and going to prison. So we got people taking the little bit of money we got, and then people leave the city, and charter schools are taking up funds. That's like three things on just the money side.
Well, I got to ask this question. It kind of ties into it, and I've always wondered the mindset when you work in a district like DPS. Do you feel like you're on your own as far as like when the kids like? I have to word this delicately. Do you feel like mom and dad are not a factor? Do you feel like you are on your own with educating these kids when you're in a system like Detroit Public Schools?
Well, I can say the school I work at is especially very, very low income. Not every school in DPS is like that. You've got your Cass, your Renaissance. Those schools do well, and there's schools that are in the middle. I can say where I work, it's extreme poverty, and for me that's a pretty common thing. Parent teacher night, it's a busy night if you have 8 parents come to see you. That's especially busy. My first parent teacher night, I think I had 3.
And that's out of how many classes?
Yeah, what's your average class
size? How many students?
At that time I had 5 classes, so probably roughly, we'll say ballpark 100, 110 students, somewhere between 100 and 120. I remember it got, like, first night, I had seen the 2 parents like pretty quickly at the beginning, and then I didn't see any for like the next hour and a half. So I got on Netflix on my computer. I put my feet up on my desk, and I ended up my eyes were closing and my head was falling just as that third parent came in. I was like, oh my God, I probably look like super unprofessional. But you're like, this hallway has been silent for 90 minutes.
Do you think it is because, and this is a tough question too, is it because mom and or dad has to work because of the area you're in is so much poverty, or is it a level of disinterest, or is it a mixture of both?
It's everything. Most of our students, there's probably only one parent in the house. There's a lot of drugs. There's a lot of crime in our neighborhood. A lot of our students aren't even, living with their parents. They're living with aunts and uncles and grandparents.
Yeah. Yeah, because growing up, I went to work like lower middle class and working poor schools, and then when my mom got married, my stepdad lived in Milford, and I went to Muir Junior High, and it was a complete culture shock to me and my mom, because they expected her to be like involved in my education, and she had never been involved before. She's just like, I just send him to school. That's just what I do, because he has to go. And so I understand what you're saying. And I mean, it's got to be rough, but at the same time, if you're teaching high school, like at a certain point, I imagine you're going to have kids who are going to take high school seriously. And you're going to have kids who are going to blow it off. And like, it's almost like Fight Club. I would imagine that they have to decide their own level of involvement.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely, you got your students right away, who are always working hard and always trying. You got those ones, and then you got another category of some who are stubborn, and you got to work a little harder, but there's ways you can get them to be like, oh, I can do this. Oh, I want to do this now. And then, then you got the group that you're like, I don't know how to help you, and I will sit you down one-on-one, and we have a talk of just, there's definitely those students where you have to be like, hey, like, help me help you. Like, why aren't you doing this? is it me? Are there other teachers you get along with? And eventually, usually by fourth quarter, that's usually the time where I'm like, hey, I've tried for 3 quarters to motivate you. I'm just letting you know, like, I will continue to teach you. I will give you the work. But by the fourth quarter, if you need extra help, you got to come to me, because I've tried, 8 months to motivate you.
Yeah, basically
and I'm going
at
to
that
spend
point
more time on the ones who want the help.
Yeah, and I mean, is that something that took you a while to get used to? Because I'd imagine going into teaching, you want to help as many kids as possible. You never want to look at a kid and go, "This is just a lost cause at this point."
Oh yeah, it's hard. It was hard then, and it's hard now. And I've had to tell friends, like, this may sound horrible, but what made it slightly easier, and because when I first started, all the other teachers were telling me, you can't help everyone. You can't help everyone. So instead of looking at it as you have, like, let's say you get 100 kids at the start of the year. Instead of looking at it as you have 100 and you're losing them, you almost have to go into the year thinking, here's 100 who will do nothing, or, not do nothing, but here's 100 students, and instead of thinking about losing 100, you think each one that you can actually help, you're saving. I don't know, did I explain that right, or does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
So I'm not looking at end of the year like, oh my God, 80% of my class, is probably going to end up in this area. Instead, I go, oh my God, I helped this many people by the end of the year. I helped them get out of this poverty potentially.
Now I don't know if this is still a thing or not. They called it social promotion when I was in school, to where if a kid is a certain age, they just, whether or not they're ready for the next grade, they just bump them up to the next grade because they don't want a 15-year-old in 7th grade.
Yeah.
Is that something that happens still? I mean, to where you get kids that you're like, okay, you should know this, and you don't even have a basic grasp of the basics. And I'm trying to teach you high school stuff.
Yeah, that's about 90%. I would say 90% of my classes.
Now, was it I mean, if it's not okay to mention the school, we can take it out. But you taught at Wayne Memorial for a while, and
well, I only subbed there.
Oh, you subbed? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This DPS is my first official my own classroom.
Gotcha.
Position.
Would you say it's the same when you were subbing at the other schools as it is at DP in the Detroit school you teach at? No.
Even you could say the rougher suburb schools were better. Most of my students, they're at least probably average 3 or 4 reading levels below.
Wow.
I've got classes of sophomores. They're at 2nd, 3rd grade level reading.
Wow. Now, I mean, is that how? Just, I mean, this might be. You might have to make a guess, but how many do you think that is due to, maybe undiagnosed or not dealt with learning disabilities?
Undiagnosed, I don't know. I'm sure I've got some students that are undiagnosed, but I've got quite a few that are diagnosed. But getting help from the special ed department is always not the easiest.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to ask. Now, the special ed department, does that necessarily? Do they focus more on emotionally impaired kids, or do they focus on kids with learning disabilities? Which one gets more of the focus, or is it equal?
I would say it would be equally, at least from what my experience is. I don't know how other DPS schools are. I can only vouch for what I've seen in mine, but from what I've seen, they equally don't get noticed.
Okay, so I mean, I mean, it's I don't.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of bleak.
A real positive talk.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
I mean, I'm trying to find like the silver lining here, and I mean, I'm starting to understand a little bit better what you said a few minutes ago when you're like, you can't look at it like you're losing X amount of kids. You have to look at it like you're helping X amount of kids, or else I imagine you'd feel overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that definitely happened to me like first year or so. It was, and here's my first year.
Did you see stand and deliver and you got extra pumped? You're like, yes.
Ugh. So I go to a job fair, and it was really hard for me to get a job because I was doing the subbing and I was getting paid like nothing. So I went out and got like a normal 9-to-5 full-time job. And I thought, this is what I got to do just to pay my bills. And before you know it, you just kind of get into that like routine of go to work and get your paycheck and enjoy your weekend. So the next thing I know is I had been graduated for 4 years. And I hadn't had a job teaching. So that's when I was like, oh my God, I got to really try to do that. So that summer, that last year before I got hired, was when I started really applying a lot and going on interviews. And I went on a bunch of interviews for charter schools. But when you've graduated and you only sub for a month or two, and then there's like this 4-year gap, it gets really, really hard to sell yourself on an interview, even if you do answer the questions right. If someone comes in, they've taught at one school, there you go. You should hire them. They got more experience. So I go to this job fair, and it's chaos. But I'm like, the summer's almost done. If I don't get a job this summer, I think that's it. I think I'm never going to teach. So I get the job here, and they don't really tell me when I start. So I start calling downtown the HR, just trying to get info. And it rings and rings. Every day it rings. It goes to voicemail. That says the voicemail box is full. I can't even get a hold of anyone in the main office to tell me when do I start my job, what position do what subject am I teaching. And then my first year was a chalkboard. I had no printer and no projector. No technology. That was my first year, was classic chalkboard, talking about the War of 1812, and I had classes with about 35 students in there.
Did you punish someone by making them clap the erasers?
I should have. They would have had too much fun with that. Anytime you think you're going to punish them, then you're like, oh no, you're having fun. But this is not when you're supposed to have fun.
Well, that I guess that leads me to my next question, which is, you said your first year was very bare bones, not much technology in the classroom.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that's just like systemic in Detroit public schools, or is that particular to because maybe you were a new teacher? They're like, we're going to see if you pay your dues and you're going to stick around. Then we'll give you a little bit of bells and whistles.
It's definitely not like that. It wasn't even like that in the rest of the school. At the time, we had 3 different floors, and each floor was a separate school. So we were 3 small schools in one building. So the school I was at did not have as much technology as just like the first floor.
Okay.
But then the teachers who had been there longer had the better rooms, and they definitely stuck me in like the old room. And it was just kind of, you're new, you're at the bottom. And I was like, I can't quit. If I quit my first teaching job, I'll never get a job again. So I had to stick it out.
They're like, second year, you get a whiteboard and a graphing calculator. Stick around.
Well, I was lucky enough. I had a family member who had just a spare projector, and I still use it. They gave it to me, and every day I walk in with it. I walk out with it. I brought my own speakers so I could show movies and stuff. And but it was definitely like that first year or so, I would have to email like my mom and be like, hey, can you print these at work? And I'll pick them up later, or I'd have to run to Kinko's, or I'd have to find another teacher with a printer. And
he works for a major school system, folks. For a school system for a major city.
Have a printing room.
Well,
emailing his mom to print out stuff for his class.
Is that pretty common to where the teachers have to supply their classroom through, through their own paycheck?
Yeah, that's definitely common. It's not as common to dish out as much as I did my first year. And I'm happy to say now, so I'm still in the same building, but we converted to one school, so it's not the three small. And so I've got a different principal. And this new boss definitely, things aren't perfect, but there is a lot more technology. I actually have a room to print all my assignments. There's no more emailing my mom. They got me in a nicer room. They do have supplies when you need it. Sometimes maybe they don't get it as fast as I need it, so I'll run to the dollar store. But I would definitely say me spending my own paycheck has gone down significantly. But it's definitely a common thing for, teachers to go out and buy the poster board sometime, or more markers or pens or whatnot.
So does the lottery bring your money every month directly to the school, or how does that work? This is ridiculous. We keep hearing this lie.
If I'm sure the lottery helps some schools, but I don't see it at mine.
That's like my job. My job going to work and going, all right, we need you to print this out, but you got to bring the paper. Wait, what? By the way, you need to bring the printer
to print out the winter exam, and I spent about $80 making copies.
And you don't get expense for that? You don't get that paid back? The school district doesn't give you, hey, I spent $80.
I can write it off on my taxes.
What?
I'm you always hear the horror stories, but I guess you don't realize it. And then, it's not like you're making, six figures as a starting teacher.
No, in DPS, your first year, you're starting at $35 a year.
And we wonder why. We wonder why.
Well,
we start off a manager of a McDonald's at more money.
Well, I guess it just goes to show that, once again, trying to blue sky it and find a silver lining here. I guess that weeds out the people who aren't there to actually teach and to help.
Oh, for sure. There's anybody who says they get into teaching for the money is full of shit. They're like, oh, you're getting money? Where are you getting it from?
Working for a private school?
I don't think they pay that well.
Maybe college professors, or something like that. Because from what I've heard,
professors for sure, but a middle school, high school, no. Unless you're, at the top level, after I got 20 years in here, I'll be making a decent check.
Wow. Yeah, you said you not only had to print stuff up, but is it basics you have to supply, like paper, pencils, stuff like that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, now with the new boss I have, they supply a lot of stuff. I would say 98% of the stuff. The only time I now
why is that not 100
things is just maybe I need something and they need a day or two to get it. If I know I need it if I'm doing a project the first thing in the morning, on my way home I'll stop at Dollar Tree and stock up on some markers or something. I know I'm saying a lot of horror stories, but it's not like that at every school, and it's not even like that at this school now.
All right, 39 minutes in, I'll ask the question: why work for DPS? Do you just need the gig? Everything the picture the news has painted around here, you are not helping to dispel any of that. So why?
You know what's great? All the things I've told you now, but I can say, and my friends and family go, okay, you're a couple years in, go to the suburbs. You've got the experience. But I would, now, I have no interest in going to the suburbs, and I absolutely love my job. I love it. I wouldn't want to be anyplace else. And I'll explain. So in the suburbs, you know what? You're going to have the good technology. You're going to have more of the resources. You're going to have a bigger paycheck. But if we're being honest, those kids are probably going to be okay. They can keep their teachers. If you're going into it and you truly want to try to help people, I love like these. There's 99% of my students need help. This is where I could possibly make a difference.
You're able to see the impact you're making.
Yes.
I can see that.
And there's things, I have a coworker, this year they left and they went to the suburbs and we talk. And I'm like, how's it going there? He says that in the suburbs you have just as many problems. They're just different types of problems.
Oh, yeah. I'd imagine.
There's things with me being a history teacher and the things we talk about in class. We talk a lot, especially in world history, a lot of revolution, a lot of socio-economic problems, a lot of...
You don't say.
History's full of, the rich or the powerful abusing, and then eventually the lower class snaps and they say no more.
And roll out the guillotines.
Yeah, that was the first chapter we talked about this year. And then we follow that up with the Haitian Revolution. And when we come back from break next week, we're starting the Russian Revolution. If it's not revolutions, war we talk about. But there's things I say in this class that if I said in the suburbs, I would probably get in more trouble.
Well, that was the question I wanted to ask you. Have you ever been told you can't teach this subject like you're teaching it? Or you have to stick to the curriculum. You can't go off book.
No, I've never been told that.
Okay. Because, that was one of the horror stories of the whole, under Bush, what was it? No Child Left Behind. It was, I'd hear these horror stories about teachers felt handcuffed because they had to teach children to pass the test. They weren't teaching them anything except for, binge and purge, stuff the information in, puke it out on the test, get the test scores up, and so it looks good for the, for the people in the offices.
That if you're in math or English, that's probably more your day-to-day stuff, because that's what they'll test on. So for social studies, I just got to make sure they can read and they can understand what they're reading and cite evidence. But so I'll give them a speech that Hitler did, and we'll break down Hitler's speeches he gave when he rose to power. I can do that as long as we can break it down and talk. Okay, what does this mean, and what's the effects of him saying this or that? And so if I do that, I get, in a way, I still am teaching towards the test, but it's not the way English and science is.
Okay. Well, yeah, and it sounds like you're the type
I just don't care. Like that, not that I don't care about the teaching, but you can tell me teach towards the test, but I'm like, no, I'm going to teach them to read. I'm going to teach them to be able to find evidence to support their opinions or their answers. But the things I teach in my class is things I'm trying to get them ready for the world.
Yeah.
So the test isn't the first thing on my brain. I want them to identify propaganda. I want to get them to identify what fascism looks like and nationalism.
Do you ever get any pushback from, say, well, I maybe kind of already know the answer to this question because of how you've answered the previous questions, from the parents when you get to some of the more maybe, more sensitive parts of history, like perhaps the Civil War, Civil Rights Movement? Do you ever
No, if I went to the suburbs, I would.
Yeah.
Do you feel you're allowed to speak more plainly working in Detroit versus in the suburbs?
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess what I'm asking is like, are there certain subjects in the suburbs that you would have to tiptoe around where you can just flat out go, okay, we're going to discuss this and we're going to be honest about it and express yourself and don't worry about necessarily saying the quote unquote right thing?
Yeah, that's more how my classes go.
Okay. See, you sound like the type of teacher I'd have liked, because you sound like the type of teacher who's trying to teach you how to think, not what to think.
Literally every day when they walk out of my class, instead, a teacher stands by the door and says, have a good day and stuff. They hand in their work on their way out, and you will just, if you stood by my class or walked by, you would just hear from my room, hear me repeatedly, every student that walks by, all right, have a good day. Fight the power, question the system. Fight the power, question the system. Stick it to the man. I'm definitely like the cliche punk rock teacher.
You're going to sound like Chuck D.
I talk about Chuck D all the time in class, and they're always going, what? Who?
Why talking about my granddad's music?
Yeah, oh, God, yeah. Actually, it could be. Yeah. I didn't think about that. Because my daughter's in college, and yeah, I grew up listening to Public Enemy, and if she had a kid right now, it would be her grandfather's music. So, speaking of music, now, what is the state of like music education, arts?
So my first 2 years, we did not have music. We did not have art. This year, so we got a new superintendent this year, and and we didn't have gym either. And he stressed bringing all that back. So as of now, we do have a gym class. We do have an art class, and we do have like a band. Now, the band room happens to be right next to the copy room, and when I go to make my copies, there's maybe only like 5 students per class, it seems like, in music. So it's real new where I work, and I don't think every student really knows about it yet, but we have it now.
Okay.
5 drummers?
I feel like it's a lot of trumpet players.
My other joke is going to be 5 bass players.
Ned's Atomic Dust Band. Start a band with 3 bass players. There you go. But no. Now, how are the, and I'm just picking up what it seems like you were laying down. You don't seem like to be a big fan of the athletics necessarily that come along with school when you were in school. Does that play a part in the school you teach at?
No, I mean, like, the students, they play football and basketball, and the students around the teams care about the sports, but I don't think anything can have the type of school spirit that CC had. No,
but you guys, that shit was, dude, that shit was like a mafia.
Yeah.
I remember playing Catholic Central.
Yeah, I truly never understood it. I was like, you guys, like, love this place.
That's that West Side Catholic school mentality, man.
Yeah, we don't have that type of school spirit.
But I mean, if you have kids that are in athletics, is their participation based upon them keeping their grades up? And so, and if so, do you think does that motivate them, or?
I mean, to me, it's that's how all schools are. You got your football players, you got your basketball players. I mean, you on occasion have a coach, and you try to talk into bumping a grade, and you just, it's gotta be like, no, like, they gotta earn the grade. And then when they see, in my experience, I have the athletes, they definitely at least try to get the passing grade.
Well, one high school I went to, our band was literally a band. It was a drummer, bass player. I played guitar. We had another kid playing guitar. And we could, as long as the music wasn't obscene, we could pick whatever songs we wanted to learn, and we'd learn them and then put on a show at the end of the year. And
damn, I go to this high school?
Mr. Young, that was my teacher. I'm telling you, I remember him very well. In fact, he's one of the few teachers I ever contacted years later. But he made it crystal clear. If you come in here and you're failing the rest of your classes, you won't be in this class for very long. So that's why I was asking, because that was like, okay, I gotta, even subjects I hated like math, I had to nut up and put my nose to the grindstone on. Yeah, and I was just wondering if that was how it was with the athletics for the kids who play. And, it sounds like there's not enough people in band, like you said.
Yeah.
If there's only 5 kids per class. I guess, in a way, I would look at that as a good thing, because at least they're getting some individual, one-on-one time with a music teacher. But another way, it's like, that's kind of sad. There's only 5 kids in a music class.
You ain't going to no competitions, yeah.
It's sad, but like I said, this is the first year that the music's back. And I don't know how long it's been gone. It wasn't there when I
Who
started.
the hell plays for the football team? What, do you score a touchdown and then silence?
That I couldn't tell you because I've never gone to a game. My students will ask me, have you come into the game? And I just look at it, I go, you guys know I don't like sports. They know I'm in a band, so they're like, oh, you got a gig, oh, you got practice, okay. Like I tell them, like, guys, I'm the artsy music guy here. I'm like, I don't do football or basketball. I'm like, good luck on your game. I hope you win. But I don't watch sports, so.
If not, everybody tried hard. All right, I got a gig.
No,
yeah, on Monday, I tell them about our show, and they tell me about their game.
Well, I have to ask this. Have any of your students sought out your band?
Oh, yeah. They find me so quick. I don't even tell them. It's at the start of the year. I just do, give them the syllabus, and we go over it. The next day, someone comes in like, hey, you're in a band. Here's your video. And I'm like, what? How did you find that so quick? They're all convinced I worship the devil. They're all convinced I'm not saying real words.
Who's racist now?
Well, I mean, I when I went to Florida, I went to a school that was it was diverse is the word that they would use today. And yeah, I got a lot of that because I had long hair and I played music. People come up, do you worship Satan? I'm like, no. I don't even believe in God, so that stands the reason I don't believe in Satan either. So,
yeah, they think I sacrifice goats, and because I wear my pants a little tighter or I wear skinny jeans, they assume I'm satanic and I'm gay.
Wow, that's a hell of a combination right there.
Yep. And I'm always like, guys, you got to get out. You got to experience the more of the world.
Well, I think it's amazing that your first day, hand out the syllabus. Second day, you had that one student who turned into Woodward and Bernstein and he tracked you down via the internet.
Yeah, I found out everything. Why don't you put this much effort into your work, man?
See, yeah, that's the comeback I'd have. Like, well, is that the kind of motivation and effort I can expect all year in this class? I gave you no clues.
Well, you got longer hair, so I mean that's kind of a clue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they see that. They see the tattoos, and they
yeah, because there's no long-haired white guys on the internet, Rich.
There's no what?
There's no long-haired white guys on the internet.
I got long hair at this point.
Easy to find him.
Ask me if I'm in a band all the time. It's the only in some people's minds. That's the only reason to have long hair. You must be in a band. I'm like, no, it's cold out.
I'm tired of haircuts.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. I like my hair long. Leave me alone. So now, when it comes to this, is what I've always wondered. When it comes to summer break, summer vacation.
Yes.
What if anything is done during the summer where you have to is it like once every couple of weeks you got to come in and do something at the school, or is it like you're just completely off? You can do whatever you want. You can even get another job during the summer if you wanted.
For most of us, we have to get another job.
So you don't keep collecting a check. It's like it.
So you have two options when you work here. So you can get 22 pays. So your paycheck will be a little bigger, but you won't get anything in the summer, or you can get the 26 pays. A little smaller, but it goes all year. I'm at the bottom of the pay, that if I took the 26 paychecks a year, I couldn't cover my bills in the month. I just moved up another step, and I got a raise, so I thought maybe this is the year I could do it, and I calculated my bills and my paycheck, and I would still be short about $30 a month. So some teachers can do that. I'm not at that level yet. So what we do, we have credit recovery all year. It's like night school. If you can sign up for that, you teach that. That's what I did last year, and all the money I got from that, I would just put away in my savings, and then you live off that. And this year, I'm doing tutoring now in the evening, so I'm going to be putting all that away to get through the summer. They offer seminars So you can earn credit to renew your certificate and make money that way. You can maybe teach summer school. I've done that. Last year I didn't get picked, which is why I had to do the all like the seminars. So we'll see. But yeah, you can get your checks all year, but they're going to be smaller. Or you can get the bigger checks and then just try to find money in the summer. And for me, it's, you know, it's hard. I can't just like deliver pizza. I still want to cover my bills. So I got to think ahead at the start of the year. And I'm basically putting away a little bit every month to get through July and August.
Man, I mean, I don't want to keep going back to this, but I'm just, when you actually talk to someone in the reality of how little you get paid for a job that, I mean,
yeah, at this point, if I got paid 12 months out of the year, I couldn't afford my bills right now.
It's just, yeah, it's mind blowing because you'd figure that we would want to take care of the people who are, you know, teaching our kids, you know, the next generation. But it just seems like, I don't know. So, excuse me. I know this might be a sensitive area, but I've wondered, since it is a high school, and the high schools I went to, because I went to like 6 different ones, it varied, but it, you know, do you see a lot of, like, you know, fights? Do you have problems with kids like smoking? Do you have problems with kids that just, like, you know, fuck you, I ain't listening to you, and then just storm out of class? And I mean, because, you know, I imagine that's just, you're going to have those kids that are like that.
Yeah, that times 100.
Really?
Yeah. My first, I haven't broken up any fights this year, but we've had a lot of fights. But I've definitely broken up fights before. Got a bloody lip from a freshman girl my first year, you know, trying to get her and another girl apart, and her arm swung back, and I was behind her, and her elbow cracked me in the lip. No, we were on the news just maybe a month or so ago. We had a freshman come in and punch a teacher and cause that teacher to have a seizure. Yeah. Yeah, freshman did that. So, we've had that. We've had, you know, we definitely have fights. A couple a week. It gets bad around springtime. Like once the weather starts getting good again.
Do you think it's because the kids are anticipating the end of the school year? They're getting antsy.
I think they're antsy. Like winter ending, they're gonna be able to be outside a little bit more. I don't know, but we just know it's like that's when there's some more fights.
The hormones kick up.
Yeah. I've been called every name in the book by students. Yeah,
Whitey?
I've definitely had students.
Have you been called Whitey?
I've been called White Devil. I've been called White Bastard.
Whitey's my favorite. Highly underused.
I have a student who consistently every day comes in. I mean, she's always like, "Oh, hey, how's my favorite cracker doing?" I was like, "You shouldn't say that stuff, man. Not cool."
See, that's you. This is why I don't teach, because I wouldn't last long, because I would flip it and be like, "Okay, you guys, you need to step your slur game up. We're gonna go over some au fait. Do you know what au fait means? Gray meat. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's other names besides Cracker and Whitey and White Devil. And let's go into where exactly au fait comes from."
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we going to some of the schools I went to, some of them were a little bit more rougher than others, and yeah, I mean, it was the level of respect tended to be the rougher the school, the less respect the teachers got. You know, it was amazing how much Mr. and Mrs. was not used in rougher schools. It was just, you know, they'd call you by, you know, we'd call the teachers by their last name.
Yeah.
You know.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
Unregimented.
And I just you hear horror stories about school violence and stuff like that, but it's like are Detroit schools, are they pretty much, now do you guys have like a uniform
Yeah. We our school, each grade has a different. They got to wear khakis or black color pants, and freshmen are yellow shirts. Sophomores are white. Juniors are gray, and seniors are like a dark green. So that way we can identify them.
Gotcha. And I mean, what is there school security, or is it?
Yeah, we got security. We got a couple security guards.
Okay.
And we got some hall monitors, and I don't know. I'm so unfazed by fights now. Now when like a fight breaks out, you're just like, ugh, another one? Come on, I'm on my prep. It doesn't bother you at all.
I got shit to do.
Cockroaches don't bother you anymore. Rats and.
Well, oh yeah, that's there. What is the state of the drinking water in Detroit public schools at this point? Because I know for a minute there they were saying that the
we got big old like water jug coolers right now, but it's getting fixed. Actually, just before winter break, they were installing those fancy water fountains where you can just put your bottle up to it. It's got like the little like outline of it, and it'll turn on. So probably when we get back, it should be fixed. But I know it wasn't like Flint level. As soon as the problem was detected, they let us all know, and they immediately shut off all the fountains. And we got to get the water from the water jugs, but we always have water for the students and for the staff.
Okay, all right. And how many, if you could estimate, like a percentage, how many students do you think are on some sort of reduced lunch or free lunch? Is that still a thing in high school, or is that more of a grade school thing?
I would say 95 to 100% of our students.
Dang. Okay. So, and I mean, so basically it's across the board.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking from my school. Are you asking about all of DPS?
Oh, well, I'm just from your experience.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, because I know that when we were talking about the teachers in LA that were on strike, they said that it was something like 70% of students were on reduced lunch. And we were kind of, when I brought that number up, because I'd heard it on NPR, it kind of took Aaron, our co-host who's not on tonight, he was like, that many? That high? And I'm like, that's the largest school district in the country, so it's got to be worse in the smaller school districts or the poorer school districts.
You guys got breakfast too?
Yep. Yeah, for the whole city, I couldn't tell you. I just know for my school, it's pretty much all the students. But I also said too, I know not all DPS schools are like mine. I am in one of the highest poverty areas in the entire city. So all the horror stories, I'm sure every school has horror stories, but I happen to be in a building that's going to have more than most.
So my mom graduated from way back like 50 years ago. Shit.
Yeah, it's crazy the stories I used to hear about it and how different it was.
Now, you said charter schools take money from the public schools.
Yes.
Excuse me. How exactly, do you have any friends, first of all, teach at a charter school? Or do you know anyone teaches at charter school?
No, I know people who have taught at charter schools, but they're no longer teaching there.
Okay. And, I mean, would you say that, like, what are, like, a charter school, is there a charter school in the neighborhood that you teach in?
No. But, yeah, not in the neighborhood where I teach at, but I do know that since 1995, 200 DPS schools have closed. And in that same time, 100 charter schools have opened in the city.
Now, where are charter schools for the listeners? What's the difference between the public schools and the charter schools? Where are the charter schools getting their money from?
Same people. Charter schools are publicly funded, so they're paid for with taxes, but then they're privately run. They're run like a business. They don't have necessarily principals. Their principal, does the job of a principal. So they could have a different title similar to like a CEO. It's more corporate.
Tuition?
No, not typically.
I guess. So what's the difference? Like they have to turn a profit, whereas a public school, it's just. I guess I'm not understanding the.
Yeah.
If the money's coming from the taxpayers, what's the fucking difference?
It's run like a business. It is for profit, and if things don't go well, they can close it real quickly and open up a new one.
So, damn, almost like,
But yet, like I said, it's still publicly funded. So for every student who leaves a public school and goes to a charter school, that's money that they're taking with them.
Okay.
And they try to, make it seem like charter schools are so much better. But when you look at the standardized tests and you compare them, charter schools are at like the same level as public school. There's no proof to say that they're better.
So are they guilty of cooking their numbers to look better, or
lobbyists, advertisements, the DeVosses? They're the ones who pretty much got it all started. So they do this, this campaign back in the day to spread this message. Charter schools are they say public schools are a monopoly, and if we open these charter schools, it will force the public schools to, in theory, if you have competition, you will do better, right? You'll try harder.
Yes.
So they send that message out, but in reality, charter schools, if you look at the numbers with their test scores, they're not an improvement over public schools. And like I said, they can make a profit on it, actually.
And in my experience, if there's a profit to be made somewhere down the line, someone's sticking some money in their pocket where they shouldn't be.
For sure.
But
then you got that issue too with standardized tests. So you take money from public schools. So I'm teaching students who, ninth graders coming in at a fourth grade level. We don't have the money for a projector. We don't have the money for a printer. I'm teaching with a chalkboard with students, who are below reading level. And then if the standardized test score isn't good, then you can close my school down and say, I'm not doing my job, but I don't have all the tools I need or that could significantly help me, because the money went to charter schools.
And why not just incentivize the public schools to perform better instead of creating this false competition? Why not just incentivize the performance of the public schools?
Exactly.
Well, one of the things
help us and give us what we need, but you've got lobbyists and you've got people who are looking at these students like they're not human beings, like they're numbers.
Yeah, and I had a friend who taught, and he told me one time, he goes, the standardized testing is, you almost start to feel like it's more of a test of the teachers than of the students.
Oh, completely.
It's like, okay, this is a way to go, are you really doing your job, or are you in there bullshitting, throughout the school year? And he's like, he had a resentment about it. He was like, and I can't blame him. I mean, you're entrusted with a job, and then you're going to act like, we have to treat you like a child to get to see if you're doing your job.
Oh yeah, we have a reading program that you're supposed to give twice a week, once in English, once in social studies. And in theory, you send them, they read this article online, and the article's at their reading level. They took a pre-assessment test at the start of the year. So if you're at a ninth grade reading level, you see it like that. Or you can read the same article at a third grade reading level. And then they answer a few questions at the end. If they don't grow from that, then I get marked as ineffective in my review at the end of the year, if they don't move up reading levels.
And I mean, ultimately, how many times can that happen before, the axe falls?
Exactly.
So I'm imagining there's not much leeway there.
No, not too much. This is the first year I'm doing this, so we'll see at the end of the year how much they grew. But it takes time away from my actual teaching. I'm having them read articles, to improve their reading scores, but I could be teaching them how to, how the French Revolution inspired the Haitian Revolution or whatnot, or how to assess propaganda and decipher what it is and isn't.
Now, you said you teach civics. That was a class that, at my point in high school, they just dropped.
That's crazy.
There was, between my freshman and sophomore year, there was just no more civics. And they just rolled it all into one class and called it social studies. But I was never really taught the ins and outs of how the government works. When you teach these kids that, what's their level of interest? I mean, do they take an interest in how the government works when you lay it out for them?
Some chapters were more exciting to them than others, and
see, I would just pull out a picture of Trump. Go, you don't pay attention to civics, kids? This happens.
Well, that's definitely what I kept saying when someone would go, "This is boring. Why do I need to know this?" And I go, "Trump. That's why."
Pull a picture of Trump. That's why.
They don't give you enough time. That's for sure. I mean, it's only a one semester class. It's half a year, but there's definitely a year's worth of info. I didn't get to all of it, but you got to pick and choose what they need to know, and okay, I gotta get this covered at least. Some things unfortunately get dropped, but I know they seem to, at least some of them seem to find the Bill of Rights kind of interesting, thank God. And I try to stress to them, you really need to know these amendments, these first 10. I'm you really are, this is important for this area of town. I'm it's very important you know your rights.
Oh, definitely. I mean, because the amount of people who just don't, period, adults who don't understand their rights is just mind-blowing.
Or just how government works. That has blown my mind, too.
I think the one thing they at least learned out of civics from me this year is if you get pulled over and arrested, the only word you should say is lawyer.
Lawyer, exactly.
At the end of class, I'm all right, kids, what's the one word you saying? All 30, lawyer.
What do you do when the cop asks you? What do you do when the cop asks you a question? Lawyer.
Yeah,
exactly.
If handcuffs are put on you down. It's lawyer time.
Yeah, that's something I'm glad that my dad taught me when I was young. He's, your fight isn't with that cop. Your fight is in the courtroom. Shut your mouth. Don't give him any ammo.
Yeah, I have a very good friend who is a public defender. And, he definitely tells me all the time, don't say a word. Even if, they mess up, you stay quiet, and someone like him will come in and get you out.
Well, we should probably get close to wrapping up here. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or discuss that maybe we didn't think to ask?
I know everything we've talked about seems really, really negative, but I don't want to discourage anybody from getting into teaching. I can't stress how much I love my job. I would enjoy a little bit more money for sure, but every single day is exciting. I never have a boring day. I get to talk about my favorite subject all day, every day. I'm getting to help people. And there's a lot of problems in education, but it's definitely a fight that is worth having.
All right, Adam, you got a magic wand. How do you fix DPS?
I don't even think it's a DPS. One thing, we started the start of this. One of the issues is money, for sure. We need some more money. To me, charter schools are not good. We need to change the mindset of not just DPS, not the citizens of Detroit, but of the entire country. It seems like in America, you worry about yourself and your family. You got to take care of your wife and your kid. Makes sense. But it just seems in my head, if we start looking at all of these kids, your neighbor, as one big family, not just your wife and kid. But then if you think about other people like their family, then you would care about them and you want to see your family succeed. And I don't even plan on ever having kids, but it just seems to make sense. This is the next generation. Let's make sure that they're not idiots. Let's take care of them. So if you want a strong country, if you want to make America great, it seems like it would make sense to have the most intelligent citizens.
Yeah,
It seems like once we start caring more about people we don't know, it seems like if that happened, and you care less about becoming crazy rich, and you don't look at kids like numbers, but you look at them like human beings. If you can change that mindset, public schools would definitely improve.
Well, I know that it may sound, it may have felt like we were discussing a lot of the negative things, but I think one of the most positive things that you said, and that needs to be said, is not to discourage anybody from teaching, but you have to love the job. It sounds like you have to love the job if you're going to do it.
Oh, for sure. All my coworkers, I love my coworkers. If you are there in DPS, like I said, you are not there to be rich. You are there to help people. And this country is full of teachers who truly just want to help people. And we just ask for enough money to cover our rent. That's it.
Yeah, so you're not panhandling after school.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I said it.
Teaching is amazing. I love my job. I come home tired every day, but it's not that I've had jobs like day jobs, and you just come home and you're like, and when you wake up, you're thinking, how many sick days do I have? Can I use a sick day? Because I really don't want to go into work. And this is my 3rd year, and I never wake up once thinking, should I call off?
And I really like your mindset of just worry about the kids that you can get to. You can't save everybody, because I have a feeling that it would just be that would be a futile, fruitless mindset. You would eventually drive yourself nuts. The fact that you're going in there every day, you have every excuse to be like, fuck this. I'm here for the paycheck. It's a gig. But, you're going in there, you're trying to make an impact every day.
And
better man than I, sir.
When you do see the impact, when you do have those good days, or you have those students who learn, it's crazy emotional. You're it makes your whole day. Nothing can bring you down. When the day works, when the lesson works, when at the end they've learned what you wanted them to learn, and they're talking about it the next day too. Like earlier this year, the students were complaining about their dress code. They hated it. And in my class, they said, we should protest just like you taught us. We should all stand outside and get signs and tell them we're not going to come back into school until they let us wear jeans. And we'll tell them that you taught us this. And I was like, well, that might get me fired. But also the fact that if the whole school protested and said we learned this from me, I was like, oh my God, I taught you. You guys are talking about this. It makes you feel good.
As a parent, when you teach your kid something and they get it and they learn it and you realize you just taught them something they're going to use for the rest of their life, I imagine it's got to feel a lot like that.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying about that. That is a good feeling. And I mean, much like a parent, sometimes it's the small victories that you have to savor. Like you tied your shoes on your own for the first time. That's great, and you listened to me. You actually didn't just sit there and just like clock watch until the bell rang, and I imagine that's got to be a really amazing feeling. So.
Oh yeah, teaching is no big victory. It's lots of little victories. But I've been on winter break all this week, and this is a job. Even I enjoy these vacations, but I'm not thinking the day before, oh my God, I have to go back. I'm like, I can't wait to go back to work on Monday. I'm starting the Russian Revolution. We're going to be talking about all that exciting abuse of power and the rise of Stalin. I can't wait to get back to it.
Does a little part of you die every year and you have to talk about count day?
Oh, count day is definitely the worst day.
No,
you said you have to bribe them to come to school.
For people who might not know, explain real quick, if you could, what count day is.
All right, so count day is, well, most people think it's one day, and our students think it's one day, but it's really a window, but we don't tell them that. So we get a few days, but it's basically the day when you take attendance that determines how much money you're going to get for the year. So we get students, that maybe there's numerous times I see. We just had our second count day this year, And I saw students who I hadn't seen in a month or two. I assumed they had dropped out or went to a different school. But they show up that day. And yeah, it's a very stressful day. It's an important day. That's how, we do pay for our supplies and we get the breakfast for the kids and the lunch for the kids. But that's also the day that they are like, oh, they need us so we can do whatever we want. And the classrooms are more crowded that day. And it's more of a hectic day, but
I've heard
it's a needed day.
Schools raffling off Xboxes and shit.
Yep. We definitely do lots of giveaways with gift cards and stuff for them. Anything to entice them to make sure they're there that day.
Can we look in the mirror on this one, society? Can we look in the just peek in the mirror?
We have to bribe people to come to school.
Yeah.
For a free education.
Yeah. That's regardless. Trust me. This show, our bread and butter is talking about. It's a lot of us, opportunity is not equally distributed in this country. Correct. Oh. But one of the things that is distributed, one of the things that the even playing fields we are all on is we all have the right to a free education till at least we're 18 years old.
We should. Education is a bridge out of poverty. It should be. It should be what levels the playing field. An education should not be something that only the rich or the powerful get access to. By limiting who gets education, you guarantee that someone's always going to stay at the bottom. And we can't have that.
So we got to get that free college going.
Well, that's
2020.
That's one of the things that, looking back, one of my father's favorite sayings when I was a kid was "Youth is wasted on the young." He said, take advantage of everything you can, and I didn't. Yeah. Like a normal snot-nosed teenager, because I knew everything. Just ask me, I'd have told you. So
yeah.
I mean, you teach high school. I'm sure you know that type of.
Mm-hmm. I say so many things now that my dad said. It's disgusting.
Oh, just wait. You're closer to 30 than 40. Just wait. I'm knocking on the door of 40, and youth is wasted on the young. I think that all the time now.
I'm always, every day, I'm like, why don't you just do what I say? If you just did it the first time, it'd be done, and we'd be moving on. And I'm quickly becoming my father.
Well, now that I'm starting to move into the beginning of my middle 40s, I'm definitely like that Simpsons old man yells at cloud. I'm like, get off my lawn, and I'm just like, oh, it sucks, but it happens, man. It's one of those inevitable things. I mean, the best thing you can hope for is that you just don't lose. Like I said, I'm a very cynical person on a lot of subjects, but you scratch the surface of a cynic and you find a disappointed idealist.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to hold on to a few things, and I just don't let them out into the sunshine too much because I don't want to, the big bad world to tarnish it. You know what I'm saying? If you get my drift. But okay, so I guess my last question is, and this is kind of a cheesy question, but 15 years down the road, what would be the ideal situation for you as a teacher? Let's say you're at the same school, or not ideal situation, but like, hold on a sec. I gotta get my thoughts here. Use your words. Do you see hope for things being better 15 years down the road?
Yeah, I do. I think it's always darkest before the light. And I think, if history has taught me, if my own lessons have taught me, eventually people snap. Eventually they go, no more. Things have to change. There is no other choice. And I think we will get to a point, and I think with this generation that's coming out, you see it in politics, there's definitely a change in the mindset. There is a changing of the guard happening. Come 15 years, I think people will prioritize education more. We already see it. It's just the people who might be in office in 15 years. They're not yet. They're just starting. But there is a huge wave. We see it all over America. And other people can deny it all they want. They can fight it. But there's a changing of the guard. This younger generation does not think like the older generation. Their priorities are different. And I think their priorities will benefit education. I think in 15 years, you will see an improvement. I have to think that. If I don't think that, it's going to be real depressing.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I would imagine it would be, but all right. Well, we want to wrap this up, guys.
Yeah, it is a real interesting conversation, I'm strangely optimistic, even though, again, you kind of just reinforced everything we've kind of heard in the media here around in Detroit. It's like, ooh. But
yeah. There's cockroaches, there's rats, ceiling tiles fall down, but the buildings don't matter. What matters is you have people in the classroom you can learn anywhere, you can teach anywhere. So you need people in the rooms who actually care about teaching the subjects. If you have that, and you have people who want to learn, you have those students, anything can happen. Being in a building where tiles fall and there's cockroaches around, it makes us tougher. That's all.
Although
it's punk rock.
I will say, mom and or dad, maybe get involved a little more.
That'd be nice.
Don't let Adam do all the heavy lifting.
It would make life easier. I'll help with their kid during the day. Hopefully they'll be better at home. You help at home, make my day easier. It's a cycle. Let's help me help you.
All right. So, guess with all that being said, Adam, thanks. This was cool.
Yes, thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you. I thank you for having me. I hope I wasn't too depressing.
No, actually, like Chris said, the fact that you seem to be as keep as positive of an outlook as you do, and you actually want to make a difference. Gives me a little bit of optimism here, because you always just hear the horror stories. Teachers just going, I just can't wait to put in my whatever and then retire. That seems to be what what people want to lead with. You never really hear about the teachers going, I love my job. I wouldn't, like you said, I don't call off. I look forward to it. I think that needs to be said more, and I think we definitely need to give teachers a lot more respect than we give them,
and more money.
Oh yeah, I like that idea.
And because really, they're shaping future generations, and we pay them like shit. Yeah, it's kind of how you end up getting those people that end up like, hey, I'm here till I get tenure. That's how you get that. We've talked about it with police too. You start out at $30,000. What do you think you're gonna get? So it's
exactly.
All right. So thanks for listening, everybody. Hit us up on Twitter. We are at @regimentedpod. You can email us on regiment@christophermedia.net. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play. If you're not interested in a middleman, you can check us out every Saturday at christophermedia.net. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Later, guys.
See ya.
Unregimented.
ChristopherMedia.net. ChristopherMedia.net.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for listening, and thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.